Welcome to Oyate Today. Oyate means the people in Lakota, brought to you by Skull Construction.
Hi, welcome to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Oyate Today is produced by Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tim is an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Our guest tonight is Senator Billie Sutton from District 21 in Burke, South Dakota. Thank you for being here, Senator.
Thanks for having me on the show.
I really appreciate your time tonight, sir. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of biography and your injury that
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm a state senator, been in the Senate for the last 8 years. I'm a rancher, I'm an investment representative at a community bank, and I'm a fifth-generation South Dakotan. You know, I grew up on our family ranch. I fell in love with rodeo at a very young age, and really rodeo was my main focus in life. I never really saw myself in politics, and I was focused on what my career was going to hold for me. And so I went through 4-H rodeo and high school rodeo. I was fortunate enough to win second in the nation in saddle bronc riding at the National High School Finals as a senior in high school. And it just so happened that the University of Wyoming rodeo coach was there and called me later on and asked me to come to the University of Wyoming on a full ride scholarship to rodeo for that team. And I took that opportunity to do so, and it was a great opportunity. And then after college rodeo, well, actually during, one thing that's unique about rodeo is that you can rodeo professionally and in college at the same time, which is kind of unique. So I started rodeoing professionally as well and was having a good professional career. And then in 2007, had a horse flip over on me in the chute and broke my back, shattered 2 vertebrae and had spinal cord damage, was instantly paralyzed from the waist down. And that's when my life really changed directions. And it was a trying time. It held a lot of adversity and challenges.
So did this injury take place at a rodeo competition then?
Yeah, it was at the Badlands Circuit Finals in Minot, North Dakota. You know, I'd actually won the average at the Circuit Finals the year before and had drawn a horse called Ruby that I had won the Clear Lake Rodeo on earlier that summer. So I was really excited to have her drawn, and it was a 1 in a million deal that changed the direction of my life forever.
Can you tell us about a little bit about your political career then as a senator?
Yeah, you know what, I really got into politics because of education and because of the importance of education in my life. You know, I don't know where I would have been had I not gotten my degree after my injury. You know, I don't, the answer to that question when I ask myself, where would I be, scares me because I just don't know. And so that's really why I got into politics in the first place, was because I really value education and the importance of it to kids' future.
Mm-hmm. And so you've been a senator for 8 years, and are you running again this election season?
So I'm termed out, and now I'm running for governor of South Dakota.
Cool.
And it's a really neat opportunity, and you know, a lot of responsibility, and there are a lot of challenges involved with that, but I think we have a lot of opportunities to improve our state, and I'm really looking forward to taking those challenges on.
And so as a gubernatorial candidate then, what is some of the values in your campaign? What is your campaign founded on as far as values and morals?
Yeah, I mean, my campaign is based in what I believe are our shared values. I feel like we've become a nation divided, oftentimes a state divided, and I think we need to come together because we have more in common than not. And I think we come together around shared values like honesty, integrity, and hard work. Those are really all values that every South Dakotan can get behind and support. And frankly, that's what I stand for in this campaign.
When we talk about honesty and integrity, how do you feel about transparency in our state government currently?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of more transparency in state government. I've brought legislation to increase transparency, including opening up emails of state government employees, including further records retention, and to address some of the issues we've seen with the scandals that have gone on in South Dakota, whether that was EB5 or Gear Up. One of the things we found in Gear Up was that the Department of Education was not keeping fiscal records for more than 5 years. Well, when we went back to audit Gear Up, which has been around a lot longer than 5 years, we couldn't follow the money. And that was really problematic. And that's because there's a lack of a focus on transparency and accountability in state government.
So is there a lack of oversight on a program such as Gear Up then? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've seen that the Department of Education was supposed to be administering that grant, and some things got missed. Two previous directors of Indian education had sent emails to the secretary stating that there were problems in the Gear Up program and that maybe the money wasn't going where it was supposed to be going, which it was supposed to be going to help out Native American kids get a higher education and have the opportunity to succeed at a higher level. And it's a shame that a lot of those dollars didn't get to the kids that needed it most. There's certainly some success stories through that program, but a lot of money was not used appropriately. And if we'd have had more transparency in government, maybe we could have caught this earlier.
Mm-hmm. And so with this money that kind of mysteriously went in different directions, in your research, where has this money gone then?
I think we're still trying to find out, and that's part of the problem is that we don't have the records to audit to even know where all the money went. So that's why I brought a bill this session to require retention of records, especially fiscal records, for at least 10 years. Mm-hmm. That bill didn't pass. We did move the ball a little bit. There was another bill that passed that moved it to 7 years. Mm-hmm. So it's a step in the right direction, but we need to have a better process and more accountability in state government to make sure that taxpayer dollars are going where they're intended to go.
So as part of the experience of Gear Up and the aftermath of that, is there going to be some accountability for these programs and how they're administered? Is there going to be accountability for the state government in regards to watching and being a better watchdog over these programs then?
In my administration, I would say yes. I mean, I'm going to have a big focus on making sure that we give people trust in their government again. There's a real lack of trust between state government and the people because of these scandals that we've seen, because of the perceived corruption that is going on. And in order for us to do the work that we really need to do by focusing on the big challenges ahead of us, whether that's healthcare or education or economic development, we have to get trust back to the people.
Sure. And so outside of EB5 and Gear Up, what other corruption is happening in our state then that we as voters may not be aware of or are aware of and that you're working on?
Yeah, I think those are the two big ones, I think, when you talk about it. There's been some other issues that have come up within the previous administration, Secretary of State's office. There have been multiple concerns about where money is going. But what I think the bigger challenge that we have is kind of a fight against the status quo and the establishment that just wants to continue doing business as usual, that they don't want to change their ways and address the concerns of the people. A perfect example of that was when Initiated Measure 22 passed on the ballot. So that was a measure to create an ethics commission, to reform campaign finance laws, and to limit lobbyist gifts. The legislature then repealed that within a couple months of the voters passing it. I think there's a lot of frustration out there from the public that their voice is not being heard and respected.
Why is it important for to kind of monitor those campaign funds? Why is that important to an average citizen?
Because I think it's important to, number one, limit the influence of money in politics. I think there's a frustration that you may get special favors if you give enough money to a campaign. And I don't think that sits well with the public. That's why in the past I've supported regulations on pay to play, where you don't get a leg up on your competition just because you have more money. We need to limit the influence of money in politics and make it a fair playing field.
Earlier you mentioned education. Can you talk about the educational needs in our state?
Yeah, I think we have some serious educational needs here in South Dakota. We're one of a handful of states that doesn't offer state support for early childhood education. And that's something I think we're really missing the boat on. The studies are out there that show the importance of early childhood development and education as it impacts our economy and those kids' future. We have 15,000 kids in South Dakota that don't have access to early childhood education. That's a problem. I brought a bill this session to create just an advisory council to study the need. Let's first study the need. Let's try to find out how we can improve our system or what we're missing. And then we can have a conversation about what we do with that data. That bill was defeated by folks that just weren't willing to listen. And we need to further that conversation. Secondly, with education, I think a big topic of discussion is the cost of higher education. We're seeing our kids' opportunities limited because of that cost. We have a needs-based scholarship in South Dakota. And I want to give you a couple statistics about that because I think they're really important to show the discrepancy in what we do versus our surrounding states.
Sure.
So for every Pell Grant eligible student, so every kid that qualifies for a Pell Grant, we offer $11.85 in support.
Sure.
Wyoming offers $2,200 in support for every Pell Grant eligible student.
Wow.
Minnesota, it's like $1,600 in support. We are so far behind our surrounding states in the scholarships we offer to kids that really have a need, that don't have the money to go to college, and that are so far behind once they get out of college, if they make it through, that they have a hard time paying off their student debt. And then, because our wages are sometimes too low in South Dakota, they leave our state. And that's what parents and families in South Dakota are really concerned about. How do we keep our best and brightest kids here, and how do we give them an opportunity to stay here? And I think that's a big thing that we need to focus on.
Definitely. Senator, we're going to take a break and get a word from our sponsors. When we get back, we'll learn a little bit more about Senator Billie Sutton's work in South Dakota. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Our future is our children. Their hope is you. Hi, Jeff Bridges here. Help our children grow strong for the next 7 generations. 20% of Rapid City school children are Native American. Many come from difficult situations, experiencing hopelessness and despair. Rural America Initiatives brings hope and opportunity, one dream at a time, one child at a time, one family at a time. Please, make a tax-deductible contribution. Be a part of the dream.
You can't predict life's ups and downs. You just give it all you've got to stay on top. But it's easier with a partner like Security First Bank. Since 1898, we've been riding with you through the country's biggest ups and downs. And this is where we'll stay. Security First Bank, a relationship you can count on. Member FDIC.
Our school has great students and dedicated teachers, but we need our community volunteers to help us to provide a broader view of the many ways a good education can point to a bright future.
Did someone say volunteer? Our team at Black Hills is here to help. In fact, we sponsor events and projects, and our employees volunteer for organizations throughout the Black Hills, including partnering with schools to help students learn more about life outside the classroom. Extracurricular, extra fun.
Native American children make up 20% of our school system in Rapid City. Rural America Initiatives, we have a capital campaign going on to build a first-class structure for these children. They've survived for 25 years in modular structures. It's time to bring them together to see this become a dream for these children come true.
Please consider donating to Rural American Initiatives and all they have to offer, from Head Start to high school, in empowering American Indian youth in succeeding in their goals.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Once again, our guest tonight is Senator Billie Sutton of District 21 here in South Dakota. Thank you again, sir, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about healthcare in South Dakota. Can you tell us about the current state of healthcare here?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing to unwrap, because I would say that we have what some would call a healthcare crisis nationally and in South Dakota. You know, my 8 years in the Senate, I have really focused a lot on healthcare. It wasn't something I originally ran knowing that I was going to focus on. I mean, obviously healthcare has had a big impact on my life with the injury I had and the rehabilitation that I had to go through. And, you know, I'm thankful every day that I had insurance. But guess what? There's a lot of people in South Dakota that don't have insurance coverage. Over 50,000 South Dakotans that don't have access to coverage. They may have access to care in some instances through the emergency room, but that's the wrong place, the wrong time, and the wrong cost. And so when we talk about healthcare in South Dakota, I've been on the forefront of working to incentivize providers, doctors, and nurses to come to rural communities. I think we have serious issues in urban areas, but especially in rural South Dakota. Access to care is a big deal. You know, I worked very closely with Governor Dugard on how we could expand healthcare coverage through Medicaid, and a conversation of how we make sure that our IHS dollars are being used wisely. And then when you have individuals that are dual eligible for IHS and Medicaid, right now if they get their care at an IHS facility, it's 100% covered by the federal government. But if they get their care at Rapid City Regional or Sanford or Avera, it's paid for 50% by the state. So we had an agreement worked out that the federal government was going to pick up 100% at non-IHS facilities, and then that would allow South Dakota to expand Medicaid coverage to all of South Dakota, which would have been a huge win. Unfortunately, those conversations ended after the last election, and we haven't been able to get momentum on it again. But that was a perfect example of a bipartisan focus on how we address serious issues in South Dakota. And I'd like to get back to that conversation. And I think the legislature needs to be talking about it. Not only would it provide health care coverage for more folks, but then it would have a huge positive economic impact to our state. Some figures that I've seen show that we would have 40 to 60 million more dollars in revenues available had we expanded health care coverage to those folks.
So do you plan to bring this conversation back up then in the future?
I do, absolutely. You know, it's going to be a conversation that we're going to have as an executive branch versus legislative branch, and try to find compromise and come together on how we do what's right for South Dakota, because the folks that don't have access to health care, that comes into a conversation about what their future looks like, what their kids' future looks like, if they're going to be able to have a job. I mean, if you're not healthy, you can't work. And I think we all value hard work and being able to do that, but you have to have access to care. And our rural communities are really struggling with that. Our provider rates are so low that a lot of community services are struggling, whether that's nursing homes or community support providers, which take care of some of our neediest folks with very high-level disabilities.
And so whose support would you need to kind of make this happen or continue the conversation or open it up again? So
yeah, I think that tribes need to be at the table, and they will be at the table in my administration at every level. The legislature needs to be at the table. Stakeholders need to be at the table, like our hospitals and healthcare providers. And we all have to come together. And really that's what I'm excited about, because I've focused on bringing people together my entire legislative career and seen a lot of success in that. I do well working with people and getting us to find what we agree on, not what we disagree on.
Sure. You're very passionate about economic development and workforce development. Could you talk about your work in these areas?
Absolutely. So as far as economic development goes, you know, in 2013, I worked with my friends across the aisle to craft what was called Building South Dakota. And that was a program focused on low to moderate income housing, which we have a housing crisis going on in our state right now.
Sure.
It focused on infrastructure for local communities. It focused on workforce development as a piece of economic development. And so we were able to fund that. Unfortunately, some of the funding has run out. You know, we're not doing a good enough job of funding that program. And so we have a lot of work to do in that vein. But as far as workforce development, I was really glad to hear Governor Dugard talk about it at his State of the State earlier this legislative session, about how education plays such a crucial role in workforce development. And I think where we're missing the boat is around workforce development is at the high school level. One of the things that I want to bring light to is what some schools are doing with support of some state dollars, but they're creating collaborative agreements. So I'll use Burke as an example. Burke got a grant from the governor's office 3 or 4 years ago, and what they were able to do is put together a consortium with 3 other schools where they each offer a career and tech ed class: welding, manufacturing, biomedical, things of that nature. So every kid in high school gets the opportunity to take one of those classes at some point in their high school career. Then they rotate these mobile units that they purchased, and every school gets the chance to have their kid have that opportunity. Why can't we do that on a broader scale? You know, Sioux Falls has a CTE high school that is all CTE, but our rural communities don't have that opportunity unless they have support from the state, unless they find innovative ways to collaborate with other schools.
Sure. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with tribes and tribal leaders then?
Yeah, I've been, I'll first start with saying that When I first got elected, I represented District 26, which included Todd County and Millette County and Tripp County and Gregory County. And then after redistricting, I took over part of Bonham County and Charles Mix County. So I represented members of the Yankton Sioux tribe in that district. So I've always, in my 8 years, represented Indian country. And it's been a big focus of mine. Some of the people that I rely on most in my time in Pierre are folks like Sean Bordeaux and Kevin Killer and Troy Heinert, who are all enrolled members. And I put a lot of weight on what they do and what they say. And they do a great job for their communities. And so our Native communities are always going to have a seat at the table with my administration. And I give Governor Dugard credit for making the Department of State Tribal Relations a position that is cabinet level. And that's something that will continue in my administration as well. And hopefully we can expand that a little bit and have a conversation about how we work together with our tribal communities on economic development, on education, on healthcare, and do what makes sense for their communities. One thing Troy Heinert worked on that I was really proud to support was some schools that could teach in a culturally appropriate way for their communities.
Sure.
It's something I'm interested in.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. We're going to take a break and get a word from our sponsors. When we get back, we'll learn a little bit more about Senator Billie Sutton. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Native Sun News has been voted the best weekly newspaper in its class for 2015 by the South Dakota and North Dakota Newspaper Associations. You can find a copy of the Native Sun News at many businesses and vending machines in Rapid City and the surrounding area, and on all 9 reservations. We publish every Wednesday, so advertisers and subscribers can reach our diverse readership by calling 605-721-1266. The Native Sun News covers the other side of the story.
I used to think news is news. It's all the same, but it's not. There's a big difference between local broadcast news and cable news. See, local stations are part of my community, connecting me to local news, weather, and sports on every device. It makes sense. Get the news from the people I trust who actually live here. No agenda, no bias like on cable shout shows or social media, just facts. For news I can trust, I stay local. Support your local stations. Text TV to 52886 today.
The aftermath from the recent hurricanes and tropical storms have devastated thousands of communities. You can help the millions of Americans who are affected by these storms. Show your support today. Go to our app or blackhillsfox.com/hurricane relief and make a donation today.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. I'm your host, Richie Richards. Once again, our guest tonight is Senator Billie Sutton. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thanks for having me
Our
again.
conversation has been excellent. I appreciate the information you're sharing with us. Let's talk about race relations in South Dakota a little bit. How would you go about improving race relations between the state and Indian nations?
Well, it all starts with having a straightforward and honest conversation and making sure all the people, all the stakeholders are at the table to have that conversation and to continue to build trust. Trust is a big deal when it comes to race relations, and understanding how we're different culturally and how we're the same culturally is also really important. And so it's going to be really important to me and my administration that we build those relationships, because Native issues are South Dakota issues. South Dakota issues are Native issues. I mean, we're all South Dakotans, and we all want to see what's best for our state and our communities and our families and our kids.
Sure.
And so I'm really excited about the opportunities that we have.
Sure. Let's talk about your campaign here for governor. What are some of the challenges that you're going through now as a candidate, I guess?
I think the biggest challenge we face is taking on the status quo and the establishment that has had power for so long and wants to keep that power. They are entrenched, they have a lot of money, and they don't like change. And that's going to be a big battle to fight. But I'm someone who has taken on adversity head on. I know the challenges we face, and I know that I can succeed in those challenges. I've been through a lot of tough times, but it's made me stronger, and it's prepared me for the battle ahead of us. And that is a fight against the status quo and a focus on not changing.
So how has your injury led to, I guess, your career in politics?
Yeah, like I said before, you know, I never saw myself in politics, but after my injury, the people that invested in me, you know, my family, my friends, my wife, who at the time, we had been seeing each other for 2 weeks when I got hurt, and she stuck with me through everything.
So you were dating for 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
And this happened?
And my injury happened, and my life changed drastically, and now we have a young son named Liam who's 2 years old, and he was just the light of our life. And I've had people ask me, if you could go back to that day, would you change the outcome? And the answer is no. I wouldn't change it because of what I know now. I know that I'm married to my best friend. We have Liam. I've been in the Senate for 8 years. I have the opportunity to be governor of South Dakota. It's been a pretty great ride.
I think you're doing fine, sir. She sounds like a pretty amazing woman as well.
She is.
Why, and during our conversation here, why should we as Native Americans and non-Natives in South Dakota vote for Billie Sutton?
So I think we hold the same values. You know, we love our families, we love our communities. We all believe in honesty and integrity and hard work. Those are all values that we share as South Dakotans. And in order to get things done, we have to focus on those values. We have to focus on, even when we disagree, we don't have to be disagreeable. And we have to find ways to work together. I'm the candidate that's proven that I can do that in my 8 years in the Senate, and I'm the candidate that's going to build a stronger South Dakota.
With your injury, you are a prime example of a South Dakotan then, in many ways, because you've overcome many challenges. You've overcome a lot of obstacles, but you never let those hold you back. And so I'm proud to have you here on our show tonight. Once again, I just wanted to thank you for being a part of our show. I want to thank Prairie Edge for hosting our show tonight. I'd like to thank our sponsors, our producers, and I'd like to thank you for making Oyate Today a part of your night.
You've been watching Oyate Today, brought to you by Skull Construction.